I remember in school days assisting at Holy Mass one Sunday morning in the Benedictine church that was our parish, and the now just recently deceased Don Christopher came out with this in his posh English accent. Most of us don't expect to see a miracle during our lifetime. Well, actually, I've got news for you, Don Christopher. That's not been my experience. Brushing, as it were, shoulders with heaven all the time, surprises come our way. And I think quite a few of you also will have the same story. Well, I'll start off with just a bit of recent history. I was texting a dear friend of mine in Sligo this week, and he came with a text which fulminated me. It was that he was going to attend a prayer group there in Sligo, and it was called off because there had just been taking place a Eucharistic miracle. It was in a church very close to Knock. And what happened, as far as I can make out from the cryptic messages coming to me from my friend, is as follows. A host must have fallen to the ground, and now I'm not quite sure what was going on afterwards. It was being washed or put in water or something, but that's when it started to behave. And it was becoming visible flesh and blood, from what I can make out. And so Bishop Kevin Doran, who, as you know, is a very good youngish bishop, is taking it very seriously, and it's being looked at right now. But this is a pattern that is emerging in these recent years. These hosts dropping to the ground are just as much hosts as any other, and the Lord doesn't come and go. He comes to stay. Remember that little angel? He's coming to stay. You listening, Martha? We're going to receive Jesus for the first time, and it's really him. So don't let your eyes fool you. You can only see a bit of a patch of bread, but it's really Jesus, and he will not go away. And once he is no longer, as it were, physically in the by then dissolved host in our body, he's there spiritually. So you're still a tabernacle to Jesus, and it's good when you receive him to stay that way, because a lot of graces are in the air afterwards. And so we close our eyes, we don't look at Daddy, Mammy, or your sister, and you think of Jesus, and he's got a word for you. And your word to him is, Jesus, I love you. And he's very consoled. It just happens to be a little big sister next to you, Nellie, as the name of Holy Nellie, or rather Nellie of Holy God, who influenced the Pope that made it possible for you little people to receive Jesus early in life. Way back, it was given at the same time roughly as the present confirmation. But it was seen by Saint Pius X that because of what he'd seen in the life of little Nellie, I think she's somewhere down the Cork area, isn't she, that it could be possible for a child, even at the age of 4, to be fully aware of what was going on. And actually, we've had children here starting to serve at the age of 4, fully aware of it. Now, that therefore concerns you, especially Martha, this morning. Listen carefully, and remember that this is a moment in your life when you've got to give yourself now in a full, complete, conscious way to Jesus yourself. The great General Napoleon, at the height of his military career, was asked by his generals, Your Excellency, what was the happiest day of your life? And he answered like that, the day of my first Holy Communion. And by the way, I know from what I've heard that there was a mystic who made great reparation for his misdemeanors, and that just before he died, he got his act properly together and wasn't lost there on the Island of St. Helena. So that's a consolation for any fans of France. I close that parenthesis, but it matters, because the graces that are coming to you now, little one, you must treasure. It applies also to those of us who might be vaguely, as could happen in your case, in a very good family, might be being worked upon by Jesus from inside, especially at Holy Communion. Listen to what happens at Holy Communion. There are privileged moments when the Lord is given the rights to speak. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. You take over. You speak to me. And things, if we're passive, will become very active. And we say, yes, I'll give you all. And I mean all, whatever that may mean. And that may mean going to a superior and saying, know me, God help me, or if it's a priest, I would like to serve at the altar. Now, in recent years, a lot of these have been going on, and I want to pick out one in particular. First of all, the fact that because of modern science, we know more about what goes on in these, because we can now find exactly what is going on in the, if you like, visible, perceptible area. Therefore, it's constant that always these Eucharistic miracles have the same blood, which is common in the Near East. It's not very common here, the AB group. The DNA is always the same, and it's one of one who wouldn't have the father Joseph here involved, if extra evidence, and a load of things. And also one important one is that it's always, when it turns out to be flesh from the heart, which says a lot. It's also, when the blood is being analysed, it's the blood of a person who's terribly tortured, and there are stress strains in the blood that comes out because of secretions. So he's died under atrocious pain, and we've got things coming from people who are analysing these without knowing what they were. And there's one expert here to know what on earth it was, just a sample. If white blood cells were present in the heart tissue, it is because at the moment you brought me the sample, it was pulsating. When he learned the source of the sample, he was shocked and deeply moved. That's a forensic expert here, doctor at Columbia University. He was looking at one of the two major Argentinian miracles, which of course got to the ears of the dead bishop of the area, the present pope. But I want to zoom into this one here, one of the two recent ones in Poland, because there's one extra bit which is not common. So it happened, the consecrated host fell to the ground during communion and was put in water and locked in the tabernacle to dissolve. A week later, most of the host was dissolved except for a red clot that remained. Now this was interesting, because when they, not knowing what it was, examined it, they found this going on. In the Sokolka miracle, the remaining host is tightly interconnected with the fibers of human tissue. So you've got here that the species of the unvisibly transformed part is now interconnected with what is actually visibly no longer bread. Remember now, it isn't bread anyway. Once the words of consecration are pronounced, it's no longer bread. The Lord is normally hiding the fact that it's now his body so that we can receive him. But this second part is the second miracle, in which the Lord is hiding himself. Therefore there's a whole series of miracles taking place here. A second camouflage. Now, look. Interconnected, therefore, with fibers of human tissue penetrating each other inseparably, as if the bread were transforming into flesh before their eyes under the microscope. Even NASA scientists, says this expert looking at this, who have at their disposal the most modern analytical techniques, would not be able to artificially recreate such a thing. It's happening before their eyes. That's an expert there of the panel who's looking into it. So, this is something which indicates that we're not just angling also fact and science, but they're intertwined. You may remember things going on in the 90s. There was the famous case of the Civitavecchia statue, which started to leak blood, and it was sequestered by the bishop. We don't know what his motives were. Probably they were honest. Maybe he's going to examine it. I think he was actually going to get analysed. But what was his surprise, when in his hands, as he was carrying it, the blood came out. So there was no fooling. He was just an objective, almost skeptic, looking at it as a bishop. And the results were that the whole of Italy found out about it very quickly because they made a public declaration. It is human blood, but it's the blood of a male. Now the whole of Italy was trying to work out, what does this mean? And some realized, well, actually it probably does mean something. It's that the Blessed Virgin is weeping on behalf of the abuse of her son's body and blood. Remember now, the precious blood of the Saviour, all that he had in his humanity came from the mother. And the DNA tests prove this, by the way, with regard to nothing coming from St. Joseph on these tests. So, Our Lady is involved with every celebration of the Eucharist. She feels when her son is upset, as a mother would. So she's weeping on behalf of her son. And when I came back from Italy, in that holiday there, back to Ireland for the long back, and got into the car, and my friend who was taking back to the monastery, Ellen, said, do you hear there's stuff going on here in Ireland? This weeping statue. Well, the same thing is going on in Italy, I said. And then, well, she went to see the one in Grange Common, County Wicklow. She's out there, the postwoman had it, and she took pictures there, and there were pictures identical with each other, but the first one you could see these bloodshot eyes, a real mother weeping, and what's she weeping for? But then the second one she took, and it came out like this, and there she's giving the reason. The host has appeared over her weeping, wounded heart. She's giving a reason. My son is upset. He's upset because people are not using him well. And listen, Martha, it applies to you because you must console Jesus while he's most upset. You must receive him with attention and love and not do other things at that time, like hand clapping, talking to each other, finding out about the football results. It's time for Jesus. And we showed that to the woman who had it in the house, the good lady who's died now since, and she went into another room and brought out another one that someone else had had too, and the same miracle was on that. So it's a clear indication. But lots and lots and lots of things are happening all the time in the realm of the Blessed Sacrament. I told you before about people hearing in the Hermitage the singing of angels. That's going on. These kind of things happen because we're handling genuinely something greater than ourselves, the one that gave us existence. It's not just phantasmagorical, it is real. Now, you may remember some 4 years ago, I forget now, I was here and I was very ill, and remember Louisa going to Father Michael during the Mass, and she said, Father David is in a job and he can't carry on. And he came back to the church to see what I was going on, he was in a mess there. So immediately after Mass I was taken to hospital, and they kept me in. So it was just before the COVID, I don't know what it was, anyway, but then after that, after a week in hospital, I went for convalescence in Italy, and happened to go to a sanctuary in Italy, where Our Lady appeared, way back at Monte Berico, and miracles have happened there ever since. And a photograph was taken, more than once actually, photographs there, but this one, like the others, it turned out, afterwards, after developing it, there was another secret sign on it. And I think you just about see it, because it only sees itself clearly in magnification. But the host has appeared over the forehead of the celebrating priest there. It's been, but you can just about see the host. And it was quite clear, because there were other ones, there's no way the Son of Infinity has done that. It's a clear indication the Lord is dropping a hint. You must be just a man of the Eucharist, centre of your mind, of your affections, of your thoughts. A priest is the man of the Eucharist. He's the bridge between heaven and earth, and the devil hates him. Which brings me to my next point. The devil hates the Blessed Sacrament with a perfect, perfect hate. Listen to this next bit. This is recent history. This happened in the States. The local priest exorcist received an urgent call from the convent. That morning, the sisters woke up and went down to their chapel. They found their tabernacle upside down on the floor and the Eucharist still in its monstrance. Now that must be the small monstrance you put inside the tabernacle for adoration. And the Eucharist still in its monstrance, standing upright next to it. The sisters were, it was here, spooked. The doors to their convent had been securely locked the night before and were still solidly locked in the morning. Moreover, the handful of sisters, all strong in the faith, were not awakened to any sounds through the night. The tabernacle had been bolted to the table, and its base was not... Now then, its base was by this time split in two. To split the base of the tabernacle and take it off the table could not have been done quietly. It would require it being forcibly yanked from its base. In short, what occurred was not humanly possible on several accounts, as the exorcist quickly surmised. If the attack was demonic, and all signs pointed to it, why did the demons single out that particular convent? There's a reason for it. The sisters live a short distance from the United States Capitol building and not far from an abortion clinic. They are a quite quiet, contemplative presence and clearly pro-life, participating in local pro-life events. In the wake of the potential overturning of the Roe versus Wade case, there have lately been a number of abortion advocates in front of the Capitol protesting. Are such demonstrations an opening to the demonic? Satan choosing to harass these sisters in such an obvious way tells us several things. The possibility of the Roe versus Wade case being overturned is a huge threat to Satan's dark kingdom. He uncharacteristically broke out of hiding to visibly threaten the sisters. He must be desperate. The evil one recognizes the power of the sisters' prayer and witness and believes it is essential to stop them in order to accomplish his goals. And by the way, we know from the experience of Gloria Polo, who was fulminated by lightning some years ago in the mid-90s and was going the wrong way at the other end. And she was shown why. And she was given to understand that every abortion launches out into the atmosphere more demons from hell. Each one is a sacrifice to Satan. And she was also shown that where she was hit by the lightning, it was in a coil in her womb. There, she was indicating to others what she was given to understand, that the use of the coil is actually abortive because there is conception but not implantation, and the conception involves the mortal soul. And she was given to understand the gravity of this for the sake of women who are doing it. She goes on this article, perhaps it is such prayer as much as anything that is turning the tide. But while God allowed Satan to break their tabernacle, he did not allow Satan to touch or desecrate the Eucharist. It remained intact and upright in the monstrance. Jesus is Lord. Now that takes me back to another case. When I was in France, my prior told me about something which then I looked in the printed form, it's true. It happened in La Ville. And he knew the area because after being ordained a priest, he was a curate before entering. He'd been there for a while. He knew the church. What happened was this. Through electrical fault, the church caught fire. And it was a massive fire, an inferno, to the extent that all the bells were molten by the end. There was no way they could stop it. They fell to the ground, the bells themselves. The tabernacle was of wood, completely destroyed, I think. Or was it the way around? Anyway, the two things that survived. I think actually the tabernacle survived, even though it was of wood, that's right. And the hosts were completely untarnished inside. The tabernacle of wood in this inferno was completely protected, and beside it, on the side of the church of the sanctuary, was a statue of the Sacred Heart, completely untarnished by this massive blaze. So, bear in mind, Jesus is Lord and he knows how to protect himself. But, and this applies to you, we ourselves have to protect him. Now, I leave you with this, my friends. Our protection must be both interior and exterior. Confession and a state of grace, otherwise the Lord can't be consoled, but also beauty, peace and harmony. I'll finish with this. First time round in Rome, I used to serve on a daily basis, Holy Mass there at a private altar in Latin for the new rite, one of my brethren has been ordained. And from day to day, alone there with him at the altar, as he muttered away, lots of things would come to my heart. And I was very much aware of this being in an angelic world, because right next to the altar at the consecration, where it's very close to it all happening, and you can feel this angelic power around here, where it's in a dense cushion of angelic presence. It's all happening, boom, and the whole world is waiting for the moment. But also, in that same college, it was a place of high beauty and care. Nothing was spared. All the stops, organ, chant, Gregorian of course, it was a beautiful place of prayer. And those who came to our chapel in Rome said it was the best place in Rome for the liturgy. Nothing was spared. And I thought that's important. The best, and only the best, for our Almighty God. And that, of course, is what old Satan knows. He can't bear beauty, he can't bear the sacred. So let's make the sacred ugly. Let's make the sacred profane. And so we bring in the shoddy, the clappy, the noisy, which excludes what we're there for, intimacy with the one whose language is silence.
Dominum Iesu Christum,